Well, hi everyone, it's Judy Warner. Welcome back to the OnTrack podcast. So today I invited Ben in. You know, we do this every once in a while, but we have some things going on that I was sure if they're not on your radar now that you'd want to learn about. So we're going to just jump right in and give you some resources that we hope you can take advantage of while you're working remotely, and hopefully you'll have a little extra time to do some online learning. And we're going to tell you about some exciting things that Ben is doing. Welcome to Altium's OnTrack podcast, where we talk to leaders about PCB design, tackling subjects ranging from schematic capture all the way to the manufacturing floor. I'm your host, Judy Warner. Please listen in every week and subscribe on iTunes, Stitcher, and all your favorite podcast apps. And be sure to check out the show notes at altium.com/podcast, where you can find great resources and multiple ways to connect with us on social media.
Collaboration is critical to success. With us working remotely, it's more important than ever to convey design intent, review and comment, and iterate on mechanical, electrical, and software design features to get the perfect balance of user experience and form, all while improving manufacturing performance and yields. Working from anywhere and connecting with anyone has to be made easier. So at Altium, we're meeting the challenge head on. Right now, OnTrack podcast listeners have an exclusive, significant discount on Altium Designer with Altium 365 subscription. And to make this even easier, we're offering extended interest-free payment terms and a $400 bonus if you refer a collaborator so they get this deal too. So click the link below in the show notes to get your discount code now.
Hi, Ben Jordan. I so miss hanging out with you and having geeky chats at your desk.
I know. It's good to see you online at least.
I know.
And to hang out this way. And it is really, you said uncharted waters. It's really odd. We've done a pretty good job of transitioning to working from home as a company, I think. And it's a testament to our IT guys and the technology we have. Imagine if this had happened 10 years earlier.
Oh,
it would be a complete disaster.
Complete disaster. Well, and not only our team's done it pretty well, I think most designers have had relative success, at least from the people I'm talking to. But again, I think you always got to look for the silver linings, right? And so I think one of the neat silver linings that both you and I are excited about is some of the online education resources that are available. So why don't we start out by talking about, I think they're bi-weekly, talk about the free webinar series that we're putting out there.
Yes, actually, this is mainly being presented by our FAE and senior sales applications engineering team. I've been involved a little bit, and I might even do one or two because it's kind of fun. I like doing webinars and showing people how to make the most of the software. But what we found is that, you know, there is still to this day a lot of potential within our solutions for people to really do good PCB design and be very efficient and have fun and enjoy what they're doing and enjoy the process. You know, a lot of PCB designers are definitely the kinds of people who find flow when they're solving problems. That's why they're drawn into this as a career. But the last thing anyone wants is to have that flow interrupted by something unexpected or realizing you have to do something that you haven't done in 6 months and then thinking, now, what did I do last time? You know, and it can be very frustrating to me, I hear the classic sound of a record needle zipping across the tracks sideways. It's that kind of experience. And And so what we've decided to do is, along with Altium Academy, some of you may have seen that we've started just publishing all our training videos directly on our Altium Academy YouTube channel. But we're doubling down on webinars right now. And the sole purpose of the webinars is not to sell people software. It's to show you how to be more efficient with the software you have. And so we've sort of shifted focus to be a lot more educational, and the main goal is to help people be users. Because we know, look, everyone knows if you help people use your tools, it just makes them want to use your tools more. So like I don't know if everyone shares the exact same opinion, but I think a lot of engineers feel this way. If you help them do their engineering well, then it's just better for everyone.
Well, you know, my sort of guiding principle of work for me, but in my life, is an old Zig Ziglar quote, which I think is what you're alluding to, is Altium success is a byproduct of helping our customers be successful. Zig Ziglar says it like this: you can have everything in life you want to, as long as you help enough other people get what they want, right? So, right?
That guy was so
gold?
brilliant.
I know. I still have Zig Ziglar isms stuck in my head, but they're good sort of life proverbs, right? And I think that's what we're doing. Of course, we want to succeed, but the way to success is by serving, and helping them be successful with our tools, with their careers, and then as a byproduct, we'll be very successful as well. I love that. So one way that I'm involved, Ben, with webinars that are going on most immediately, because those are going on right now, and you guys all share these. I'm going to give you resources right up front here in case you can't listen to this whole podcast, but I'm going to share the webinar links below, and then we'll talk a little bit more about Altium Academy, which I'm super excited about. But in regards to the webinars, we're also going to be featuring, in addition to FAEs and some of our own internal experts, I've reached out to immediately Rick Hartley and Lee Ritchie. So we'll have also what we're calling sort of our master tracks, right, where it's tool agnostic training, design principles. And then we'll drill down on the tool level and just, what buttons to click, how things are done, how to speed up your process. So, which leads me to talk a little bit about, and we can't give away all the goodies, but Ben, you mentioned we've started this Altium Academy YouTube channel. And I got a sneak peek of a really neat sort of hands-on video you did for Altium Academy. Can you talk a little bit about Altium Academy, sort of how these webinars are going to flow into that, which is, at least right now, knock on wood, anticipated to come out in May. And let's talk about that a little bit. I'm super excited.
Yeah. And of course, as you said, Judy, not to give away too much, just because we're still developing this,
yes.
And it may morph and change a little bit as we go until it's ready for publication. But we did start this really from the YouTube channel, which is already live, and so video is the main component of this Altium Academy, and that's all still going to be there on the same YouTube channel. But what we wanted to do is provide a central hub for these resources on the Altium domain, so it's easy for people to find. One of the things most typically that I hear as feedback from new users, and even from long-term users using a newer version who've maybe just recently upgraded, is how do we find documentation? How do we find information about how to leverage some of these new features? Or what's the best way to do something? I'm doing it this way there's 22 steps, and I'm sure there must be a better way that's a lot faster and more efficient. Well, almost always there is. And our documentation team do a fantastic job of maintaining our documentation in a very thorough way, right? So it's all there, all the details are there. But with software like Altium Designer or Nexus or Concord Pro, and now Altium 365, we've got multiple products come into the mix here. And with all of those things, we have inherently, it's, how do I put this? It's just the nature of CAD software to be complex. What you're doing as an engineer is a complicated thing, and the software actually helps simplify it and automate a lot of that process. But if it's like this, if you're a natural baseballer, and I'm not, so forgive me for the flawed analogy, but if you were a natural baseballer and you had to instruct me, who's a novice, like I've never done it really, on exactly how to hold the bat, and every single motion and muscle movement that you go through when you strike at the ball, when the ball's being pitched. Or let me go with, since I'm an Australian, let me go with cricket. If you look at the cricket bowlers, and you were, let's say you're an American who's never played cricket before, and you look at the bowlers, and it looks simple when you watch them do it, but then if someone has to explain every little detailed step to you, and you have never done it before, they would end up giving up and not explaining it and just simply stating, look, you can't really describe the rules of this game. There's too many millions of them. What you have to do is watch and watch and watch, and then try it, and then have someone sort of correct you here and there as you try to mimic what they're doing. And it's the only way to really learn. Now, with engineering, we learn a lot of details in college, and we kind of synthesize the steps when we come to designing schematics and PCBs, but there's a lot of things, a lot of detail there that we're kind of taking for granted. And if you start looking into that detail because you're looking for documentation or how to do something in the software, you pretty quickly realize it's like reading documentation. It's all there, but you have to know exactly what to search for, and you might, like, it works well for a lot of people. Maybe 40-50% of the users, the documentation system works brilliantly. It's a great reference and everything you need is there. But if you want someone to just quickly show you specifically how to fan out, I'm just using an example because I did this recently in an Altium Academy video that hasn't been published yet, how to fan out a DDR BGA package where the ball grid array is not a typical square ball grid array, and you have to do it in a particular way. You're not going to find assistance from someone on guiding you through the best process. You'll find out how to get access to the automated fan-out tool. You'll find tips on, you'll find information on how to put vias, interactively route and put down vias. You'll find multi-routing. You'll find patterned copy and paste, and you can spend the time finding all of that and bring it together, and you'll come to a really powerful solution. But you individually have to spend the time. Well, what I want to do with Altium Academy is go through scenarios like that and show you, because I've already done all that research. I want to show you quickly, this is how I would suggest you do it. If you do it this way, I can show you something in 5 minutes. Now, the training's in depth and the videos are a lot longer and have a lot more explanation, so they're more like tutorials, but you can learn that once, and then each time you need to do this for a new design, you'll only spend a few minutes going, yep, this is the process. So it's combining all of those steps and associating them directly with the engineering problem. So we have, what's coming is a high-speed series, and if people want a preview of how that kind of is going to be looking at the high-level CAD tool agnostic, look, this is the engineering principles, you can check out the Altium Academy YouTube channel now, and Lee Ritchie's videos. People who subscribe to the podcast can get a sneak preview before other people even know these things are there. So it's a good reason to subscribe to the podcast.
Amen.
It's some insider info.
So yeah, that's the high level, but then you're going to show, okay, high-speed design. Let's show you how you route DDR4 BGA. Here's the hands-on stuff.
Yeah.
And so I love that combination of, having the high-level learning as well as, well, that's swell, I get it. Now show me how it's done, right? And so
we've had DDR4 routing demos. Let's say I call them demos because it's a pre-baked cake. We've had that since 2014 or whenever it was.
Mm-hmm.
And anyone can go with a free membership to jedec.org. That's the electronics industry body that deals with standards of things like memory, devices, and physical interconnect standards and signaling protocols. And so that organization, that body, is what comes together and publishes the DDR standards as an example. And anyone can go there and I think for free download reference designs of DDR modules. And I'd like to say they were all done using Altium Designer, but they were done by the chip manufacturers who make the DDR devices, so they weren't. Perhaps for the next generation, DDR5, they might see the light. But that aside, it's enough to sell software, in a pre-sale scenario where you want to see what some of the capabilities are, to open up a DDR design, a board design, and say, look, this is how DDR would be done in Altium Designer.
Mm-hmm.
And these are the outlines there, and the chips are there, and you've got a certain layer stack, and it's all pre-done, and all the sales engineer or FAE needs to do is set up some scenarios within Altium Designer, like X signals is a feature we have for doing this kind of complicated length tuning for high-speed nets. And that gives users a pretty good idea right up front that the software is capable and can definitely cater to high-speed design requirements, which it can.
And more with each release these days.
Yeah, what we haven't really had is the advanced training that shows people, if you are actually doing a system on chip design from scratch, and you have, say, maybe you have an i.mx8 system on chip processor. It's a big fine pitch BGA part from NXP, for example. It's the CPU, and next to that you have 1 or 2 DDR4 chips. How are you going to route that? How do you set up the layer stack? And so I actually realized what we had to do is pair one of those reference designs right back to the minimum and actually go through from scratch and teach people. First, you set up your layer stack, you set up design rules, you set up your X signals, which gives you the ability to define how the length tuning needs to be done in different parts of the topology, and then you route, then you length tune, then you do PDN. And so I'm doing episodes where I go through each of these steps in detail from start to finish, not saying here's the pre-baked cake we cooked earlier, but actually walking through it. And so, I mean, there's a little bit of pre-baking and preparation. I don't want to mislead people.
Yeah, there's a lot of work on your end, Ben. But
I didn't place the parts from scratch. I left them in their positions just because the placement's not complicated on a DDR4 module.
So, like I said earlier, I saw that and I loved it. I just think it's going to be so valuable. So, again, sort of recapping here, I will share the link to the webinars. I will also share a link to the Altium Academy YouTube channel. And this is a separate and distinct channel from our Altium YouTube channel. It is Altium Academy. And what I love is that we're calling Ben Jordan the Dean of Altium Academy. So, I know that many of you have enjoyed Ben over many years. And so I'm delighted to see him take on that role of education in a more formalized way. And then to tell you, stay tuned, because there's a lot more coming. And we can't give the rest away. You're just going to have to wait till May. So There's some goodies for now and something to look forward to. Ben, the last thing I wanted to thank you for sharing that, by the way. And the last thing I wanted to talk to you about is your observations about how the COVID-19 challenges and crisis has affected design engineers. And, I just want to give a shout out to all of our listeners that, from everyone at Altium, we really appreciate you, and we hope that you're safe and healthy, and wish you and your families and loved ones all the best. So Ben, how are you how are you seeing this impact, as you're on the forums or interacting with our customers and fellow designers? What's going on?
Yeah, it's been kind of interesting to see. I think a pandemic like this, well, let me rewind and start. Every crisis, and it's ironic that we see that this originated in Wuhan, China, right? Because I always think of this word crisis, and someone, a pastor once told me this story that, and I did a fact check on this, and it's true. In Mandarin Chinese, the word for crisis and the word for opportunity, I may be paraphrasing it not perfectly here, but basically crisis and opportunity is the same word. And that's actually what I'm seeing. I think I look at the Altium forums, the lounge. I haven't posted in this thread yet, but there's a huge 4 or 5 page thread in our lounge forum on COVID-19, and people just sharing how is this affecting you. It's funny because I feel like at least half of our PCB design users work from home a lot already anyway. So from that point of view, it hasn't really changed things much for them from a day-to-day working standpoint. But what I really noticed was the moment we had a work from home or a social distancing health directive from our state government here in California, and it was the very same day for many governments, many states across America. I had customers sending me emails, reaching out to us saying, hey, we're working to pool our resources and develop open source medical devices like respirators to meet this challenge. And it's so actually really inspiring. Engineers, and something else, I remember being in college before I did my engineering degree. I did an associate's degree in college, like a lot of people do, the 2 years first and then go back to university later. That's what I did. So, but I remember I had a college teacher way back then in 1993 or 94. And so I'm giving away my age roughly there. Say to us, in that first year, I think it was 93, in that first year, one of our teachers, and it just was epiphany, mind blown, even though it's so basic in retrospect, he said, who is responsible for the health and well-being of people in society? And, most of the students put their hand up and someone says, oh, well, doctors, nurses. Nurses do
Right.
the caring, and a few people clap because they might have a partner who's a nurse or someone they know and they're rooting for. And nurses do give fantastic care in times of crisis. And so my hat is off to them. And he said, well, if you actually look through history, the medical industry is important and they provide healing and care for people who are already sick. But who's responsible for prevention of illness and mass health, not mass destruction, mass health, is engineering. It's engineers who build potable water distribution. It's engineers who come up with filtration systems. It's engineers who develop technology for assisting the medical. It's engineers who come up with medicines too. And they may also be medical doctors who, many medical doctors have multiple degrees, and that's just they may get into pharmacology or alternative health. It's another one. And then, but if I think about infrastructure and how we can take certain things like clean potable water we can trust to fill up a glass from the tap, even here in California where people still mainly prefer just to drink out of a bottle that they purchase or at least filter the water, because there's other things in it, but it's not going to kill you like it will in some parts of the world.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
It's not going to give you Giardia or gastroenteritis or any of those nasty bacterial infections.
You know who's doing a massive throwing this, efforts at pervasive clean water around the world? Guess who it is? Or one of the key players is Bill Gates, Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation. They have engineered, if you have a chance to watch Inside Bill's Brain, it's on Netflix, I think, and it shows what they're doing, and it was 100% engineering effort. So, yeah, and by the way, Ben, I didn't tell you this before we started recording today, but I just got off a podcast that I recorded this morning with Dugan Karnasis, and he is directly at developing because he has a team with mechanical as well as electrical. He has found himself an unlikely character in the front lines of developing open source ventilators. He's working now with Ford, people from MIT. I mean, CERN.
And you mentioned Ford, and that's another really interesting thing that people forget. But Ford, during World War II, Ford spun out aircraft parts. And that's the other side of this that's very exciting, is that when there's a crisis, the whole engineering community, even big companies, are a lot more agile than people realize. And they can very quickly adapt. Dyson developed a respirator.
Heard about Dyson. Yeah.
Dyson developed a respirator in 2 weeks, if you believe the articles. But I do believe it because, Dyson, as an inventor, he's brilliant. But he's that company with what they do. They have the skills in-house to do that kind of thing, and they know.
Yeah.
They have the engineers who understand electronics and control systems and power and fluid flow, because that's what they do. And filtration. They've got everything. It's all there. So it just made perfect sense.
Well, Dugan was saying, because when I first heard about Ford and GM, I'm like, okay, I get it from a scalability standpoint, but I think about all the EMS companies I know that spend an inordinate amount of time getting certified for FDA so they could reliably produce medical devices. And I'm like, this doesn't make sense. Why aren't they just reaching out to large CMs on this? But what Dugan was saying is he's working actually in cooperation with Ford now. And one of the ingenious things they came up with is the device that they were using to press the ambu bags for a respirator, Ford looked at it and said, "Oh, this is perfect. Well, we already have we can use a brake pedal structure."
It's just brilliant.
Right? And so they're
But
repurposing existing technology and just applying it to a respirator. So I'm with you. I don't ever want to minimize this worldwide tragedy. It's been horrible, but I also, my faith in engineering and my faith in humanity, it's really warmed my heart to see what engineers are bringing forward that absolutely impact our world in such a relative way. So I'm with you. It is a crisis and it is an opportunity, and that those two things would be mixed at the same time is something to behold, right? But lots to be grateful for, and it makes me really proud of our customers, and that we have the privilege. I don't think I mentioned this to you, Ben, is, or maybe I did. Early on, Dugan had reached out to us, and he needed 7 licenses for the electronics team for the ventilator. He needed 7 licenses of Altium Designer plus Altium 365 with Concord Pro so they could have a centralized library. And plus, their designers are spread all over the globe. So they, with our tools, they were able to spin up an early design within 24 hours.
It's amazing.
Right?
Just brilliant.
And as proud as I am of our tools, I'm more proud. I'm proud that our tools enable that kind of global collaboration in a time like these. But I was just shaking my head going, wow. Because Digikey had looked at the schematics of the open source design, and they're like, we have a board that has 3/4 of those parts on it, and they're wire clippers that we use in-house or something. And so, or real clippers, whatever they were. And I was on a call where they opened up the design, and my jaw just dropped because it was already designed in Altium Designer. The team had already been distributed the tools, so they almost could just use, I don't know if using the right language, like snippet tools, like take this part of the board out, insert these other components that were missing, and they spun it up, right? And so it ended up being the basis for it's morphed. But anyways, it's, to me, who knew the engineers would be sort of the unsung heroes of the moment. And
well, they're not unsung here on the podcast.
Not here.
They're very much sung.
Yes, they are very much sung, and I'm trying just to put out relevant content and bring people on that are relevant to this period of time. But when these guests come on, I just want to be quiet and just shine a big fat light, things that IPC is doing to advocate for the industry, make sure manufacturers are staying open. And it's just horrible and wonderful all at the same time. One thing that I've noticed been as a challenge, if you heard about this, that design engineers can easily move off-site, and we've done some things where you could push a button and moved on demand. So if you had a, on-premises license, you could quickly move. Which was great. But what they're missing is their oscilloscopes and their labs and all that stuff that they can't physically take out of the building. Right?
Some of them, have this. That's true. And for solo warriors who are contract designers, they typically have a decent, well-equipped lab at home.
Right.
But it's definitely a problem.
I'm just wondering how, again, I'm just musing here, wondering how they're facing those challenges. I'd be interested to hear more about how people are facing that challenge.
That's something the world needs to come up with a better solution for that one too. I've known some customers. So, for example, I took a tour a year or two ago of the linear accelerator. Sorry, not the linear accelerator, the tokamak. General Atomics has a tokamak here in San Diego, and they gave us a tour. It's shared by many educational institutions for energy research. It's a fascinating piece of equipment.
I bet.
There are areas within that where people can't go at different times because of radiation risks and various other, the normal things, right, that you expect with nuclear and subatomic particle research. And so what they've done, they've set up cameras and CCTV and in situ test equipment. Now, this is a fixed installation, and it's a research tool.
Right.
So it certainly lends itself to this scenario, but I could see similar things being done in an electronic test environment where you can have remote testing done. Maybe there's a business opportunity here for EMS providers to offer a remote lab, let's say, or an alternative is an isolated lab where people can book it for a certain time and they come in through a clean room process where there can't be any, or there's extremely low likelihood of anyone contaminating it with a virus or something like that because of the way they come in and exit. But in there, it's a fully equipped lab and it can be rented out as a space. And maybe these things already exist and I just don't know about it. But I just think now's the time for this kind of thing to be offered.
We need to reach out to, we have a few friends. Steve Sandler works very closely with both Keysight and Tektronix, and of course Eric Bogatin's at Teledyne and LaCroix. We should reach out to them and see how they're handling it. I went to an educational conference once with EC department heads, and it gave me the first glimpse I've personally had into what Keysight, TI, and others do on the academic side. And one of the clever things they had, and I'm sure they're probably not capable enough for professional designers, but you just made me think of it. They have something called Lab in a Backpack.
Oh, that's brilliant.
Isn't that brilliant? And so for a very nominal cost, students could literally have like a mini lab in their backpack, right? So they could do things at home or bring it on campus. And again, I'm sure it doesn't have the full capabilities of...
And quite honestly, 90% of what people test can be done with the basic devices that most electrical engineers own, like a decent oscilloscope, decent signal generator, decent multimeter, and a computer. And a lot you can... This is also a time when people need to innovate for themselves. One of the first things they teach you in engineering school is how to come up with some way of testing what you assert. And I remember even in college we went through a whole class called measurement and lab practice in the first semester, and we learned everything there was practically to know about oscilloscopes. Now, of course, the technology, it was 25 years ago or whatever. The technology now is come a long way, but the fundamentals are the same.
Right.
And they teach you all of that, and we had to do practical examinations where we could show to the instructor that we could measure something to within half of one subdivision on the graticule and get our measurements to within 1 or half of 1% on the Tektronix scopes we had in that lab at the time. Mm-hmm. And they were old analog scopes with the CRT, but they were maintained and calibrated and everything. So, all I'm saying is it's time to pull out your original, lab skills and scratch your head a bit and bring out a notepad and think of ways of testing and measuring and trying out. Use the SPICE simulator. Use what simple equipment you have to do as much as you can at home.
Yeah.
And you'll be surprised what you're capable of measuring and testing. That's what I think.
Interesting. Well, you and I can go on and on. It's been great to catch up, and I'll look forward to being back in the office eventually, Ben. But thanks for taking time out of your busy schedule. I know you're producing a lot of content because now you're the Dean of Altium Academy. You're a very important guy now.
Okay.
So
I need to get a pipe. I need to get a clay pipe.
Little clay pipe and a smoking
and
jacket.
Elbow patches.
Yeah. That's
and a leather
you.
chair.
Yeah, we need to get that for you. And so thanks for cranking out the great content, and we'll look forward to the official launch of Altium Academy for our listeners. Be sure to check out the show notes where you can click through to our Altium Academy YouTube channel and also the webinars that are going on a weekly basis. And so, Ben and I will be in the background of those projects, and we look forward to getting all that content to you, and hopefully you have a little time to learn while, whatever time you're commuting, maybe you can spend doing online learning. So, okay, thank you, Dean Ben Jordan, and we'll talk again soon. Thanks for sharing with us what you're seeing on the front lines of this crisis and opportunity, and look forward to hearing more from you soon. Anything else you want to share last minute before we sign off?
No, I just want to give one last reminder to all the listeners and Altium users and electronics designers out there, whether you're an Altium user or not. Thank you for listening to us and watching this podcast. But I want to remind you to stay safe, and one of the things that is easy to forget is to stay in contact with friends and co-workers and be connected. So, jump into the forums. You can join Altium's user forum. You can set up an account. It doesn't cost anything. Even if you're not an Altium user, it's a place where you can share experience with other engineers and PCB designers. You can get in the lounge and share ideas and thoughts, and just stay connected, stay part of the community. Don't be isolated.
Yeah, it's an easy thing to do.
Yeah.
I was talking about a book that I had read a while back when I was working from home for many years. I think I shared this with you, Ben, which the title of the book was Worth the Price of Admission, but it was like, are you working from home or are you living at work? So my encouragement is don't live at work. It's an easy thing to do.
It is.
And especially for you problem solvers.
I have a family that constantly reminds me I'm not at work. So.
I think we all do.
If I lived on my own, it might be a bit hard to separate the two.
Yeah, totally. Well, thanks again for listening, and thank you, Ben. And we'll see you next time on the OnTrack podcast. Hey, if you guys have time, we would love to hear from you. I know usually you don't have time to do that, or you're working out or driving when you listen to the podcast. I would love to hear from you. I'll also put our LinkedIn profiles for Ben and I in the show notes. We'd love to hear from you on LinkedIn. We're on there often. And I will also share the link to the forum that Ben mentioned. And so please stay connected with us. We want to hear from you and learn about what life's for you on the front lines of this crisis. And we appreciate your work, and we're celebrating you. And please stay safe, and we'll see you next time. Until then, remember to always stay on track.